Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the solved, slightly mysterious death of Elisa Lam. I'd just like to let you know, I mean no disrespect to anyone I'm going to talk about, I've gathered this information from the internet and compiled it into a video for educational purposes. Elisa Lam was born in 1991 in Vancouver, Canada to parents David and Elisa Lam. I apologise if I've said that wrong, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. But they'd actually moved over from Hong Kong. She had a young sister called Sarah and they were really close. They absolutely adored each other. Her parents had actually opened a restaurant called Paul's when they moved to Canada. And Elisa was just very close to her family. She had a good set of friends. She was described as being a very outgoing and talkative girl. In 2010, she started her blog called Everfields. And that kind of allowed everyone an insight into her fashion sense and to this different side of her that I guess a lot of people didn't really know about her. Elisa did actually suffer from bipolar when she was young. It was undiagnosed, but it caused her to have mood swings. She made this post on her blog, and shortly after this was when she was actually diagnosed with bipolar and depression. Elisa would also complain that she would struggle to concentrate, which really did become an issue for her because she was going to university, she was doing all these courses, and her struggling to concentrate meant that she would have to drop a lot of them. She wasn't able to keep up with her studies like everyone else was able to, even though she was taking 4 different types of medication for her bipolar disorder. It really did affect her mental health as well. She wasn't able to focus on her courses like she wanted to, and it's upsetting and things. You're seeing your peers all around you being able to do all of these things and she's having to drop courses because she just couldn't do them, and it must have been awful for her. A couple of months later, she posted this on her blog. Her last post on her blog was this one in July of 2012. Now, at the beginning of 2013, she decided that she was going to go travelling. She was going to go it alone, but it was going to give her time away from her studies to just allow her to have this break, get away from it all, recuperate a bit on her mental health and things like that. As I said, she would have been getting really stressed and frustrated, and she just wanted time away. But as I said, she was going to do it alone, and her parents were really worried about that, which a lot of people would be. But they made this agreement that she would ring them every day, and she did. She rang them sometimes multiple times per day, but she did ring them every single day just to let them know that she was okay, that she was safe, and she'd tell them about what she'd done that day, where she'd been. On the 26th of January in 2013, she arrives in Los Angeles. This is where she checked into the Cecil Hotel for 3 days, and it's now known as the Stay on Main Hotel, just for anyone who's wondering. Let me just say here that many people believe this hotel is actually haunted. Since it was built in 1927, there's been a lot of dark things happen there. It had the capacity of 600 rooms, and it was built by a guy called William Banks. It cost around $1 million to actually fully complete. The hotel did really well for the first 5 years, but after that, the area around it really began to decline. And there were many homeless people and things like that would stay in the area. And there was an increase in violent deaths and suicides in the hotel. Over time, people that lived in the area and in the hotel would actually refer to it as like a suicide hotspot. There was a lot of known drug use, and there was a lot of criminal activity going on in this hotel. And it was kind of a criminal hotspot for people to commit adultery and things like that. The Black Dahlia was actually rumoured to have stayed in this hotel just days before she was actually brutally murdered. There was also rumours that in 1980, Richard Ramirez was actually a resident at the hotel for a few weeks, and he would later be known as the Night Stalker serial killer. Then Jack Unterweger stayed at the hotel in 1991. While staying there, he would actually kill a minimum of 3 sex workers. So that's 2 serial killers with strong links to this hotel, and actually numerous deaths and suicides and crime that was just all committed in the same hotel. So let's just say it wasn't the best town to be staying in, nor was it the best hotel to be staying in. And the town that it was actually in was known as Skid Row, which is pretty notorious for being a hotspot for crime and things like that. Reportedly, initially, Elisa actually shared a room with 2 people. It was only when they complained of her odd behaviour that she actually got moved to a sort of a room of her own where she had her own personal space. At this point, she was still in contact with her parents every day, and they said she seemed normal, she seemed fine. So who knows what led to the events that we will talk about soon. It was on the 31st of January, the day she was actually meant to check out of the hotel and set off for Santa Cruz, that she never actually did check out of the hotel. Not only that, she didn't contact her parents that day. As I said, she contacted them every day. When they didn't receive word of her, they tried to contact her, they didn't receive anything back. They got worried, and so they called the Los Angeles police. The next day, the LAPD came around to the hotel to try and look for her. They checked her room, they checked around the hotel, they even went up to the roof and checked around there, but there was no sign of her. Her family also flew in to help with the search for the daughter. They brought in dogs, they did everything they could to try and find Elisa, but there was just no sign of her. They even took the dogs up to the roof to see whether there was any scent of her up there, and there was just nothing. They didn't find anything. One thing to mention is that her family never told the police about her mental health, about bipolar disorder, about her depression. And the police, when they did find out, were pretty frustrated about that because they said that they thought it might have impacted the case. Now, I don't really understand that because at the end of the day, she was still missing. So, yeah. Even if her mental health did have an impact on it, she was still needed to be found regardless. So, there you go. Hotel staff said they say that they'd seen her around, that she was always alone, she was never with anyone. Then there was this woman called Katie Orphan, who was a bookstore manager. She said that she'd seen Elisa that day. She was going on about how she was looking for presents for her family to take them back home, obviously implying that she was planning on going back home to her family. Why would you be going out getting gifts for your family if your intentions was to never go home? You wouldn't. After a week of Elisa being missing, the police not really having anything to go on, they decided that they were going to post these missing posters things and put a face out there a bit more to try and get more public help. They also put it online, and this is where the media picked up on a case, and it really did get the public's attention then. On the 15th February, after another week had passed by and with still nothing to go on, they decided to release the last CCTV footage recorded of Elisa Lam. This footage was actually shown, and now it is actually really famous. This video blew up online, it caused so much attention, and to this day it still does. It was due to the strange behaviour that she was exhibiting. This has since resulted in a lot, and I mean a lot of theories about what happened to Elisa, ranging from someone being after her to the paranormal. It's been speculated that she was hallucinating, that she was playing something called the elevator game. Now personally, I've never heard of that before, but from what I could find, it apparently allows you to travel to a different realm or something like that. Some people also believe that this footage had been tampered with before it was released to the public, because something to do with the timestamp being inaccurate and the fact that it was slowed down. With very little information coming in, the search efforts did begin to wind down a lot. They obviously had other cases to look into, and there were just nothing to go on. Over the next few days, hotel guests began to complain to hotel staff that their water pressure was very low, and they began to say that when they initially ran the water, it would come out black and then it would normalize, and that it tasted strange. On the morning of the 19th of February, a staff member went up to the water tank to obviously check what was going on. It was said that the staff had disabled the alarm that obviously went off to alert anyone present up there, so that obviously hotel members couldn't possibly get up there. And that is where they found the body of 21-year-old Elisa Lam lying naked in one of the 8-foot by 4-foot water tanks. This tank actually had to be cut open to allow for this equipment that they needed to remove her body. There was no fixed way of getting into this tank, so there was no like fixed ladder onto the side or anything like that. But the entire time that this was happening, surprisingly, the hotel just simply stayed open. And they made their guests sign this waiver to say that they were drinking the water at their own risk and that they couldn't sue the hotel if they got ill or anything like that from it. In the coroner report that was issued later on, her cause of death was put down due to accidental drowning. From what I could find, there were no signs of trauma or sexual assault, and also there were no drugs found in her system. I'm not sure whether there was no antidepressant drugs found in her system, whether other drugs like what she was taking for bipolar were found in her system. I'm not entirely sure on that one, but there was definitely no antidepressants there. Her clothes were found inside the tank near to her body, and also her room key and her watch. So basically her death was ruled as an accident, and that was it, case closed. But was it really an accident? How did she actually get in there? The door to the roof was locked and alarmed. How did she get into this tank? There were no stairs or ladders, and the doors were very, very heavy to open. Why, of course, was she acting so strangely on the elevator footage? And why, if they had dogs on the roof, did they not pick up her scent of a body if she was in the water tank all along? Her Tumblr account was also updating with posts and things 11 months after her death. There was also another strange aspect, a test that was performed on Elisa after she had died, which was called Lam Elisa, and that got a lot of controversy around it. So there was just so many questions, and that was why this case was so huge, and it still captivates people today. There's, like I said, so many theories, going from entering a different realm, playing the elevator game, to running away from spirits. But personally, I actually think that the theory to do with her mental health is probably the most likely as to what happened to her. Another theory that went around though is that somebody murdered her. She was trying to get away from them, which is why she was acting so strangely around the elevator. And people think that she was murdered by maybe a staff member of the hotel that obviously managed to avoid cameras, and that's why they weren't on any CCTV. And they knew the perfect place to dump her body, the water tank. The main one for me personally is that she most likely came off a medication. And that probably made her suffer from things like delusions or hallucinations. And that could explain, more than any of the others, I believe, her strange behaviour in the elevator on the CCTV. Hallucinations can look so real. She might have been terrified thinking that it was true and that it was real when in fact it wasn't. That could have caused her to become terrified. It was then thought that she climbed up the fire escape, onto the roof and onto the tank. And then she either sort of fell in or got in intentionally and then accidentally drowned, and it was all because of her bipolar and her being off her meds. As I said before, there was no evidence of any antipsychotic drugs in the system. I mentioned before that the metal hatches were really heavy, but there's reports, and there's also a video which I will play bits from a little bit later on, that the hatches were often left open even though the hotel refused to kind of say this because they weren't supposed to, so that no one obviously could fall in them, but they were. Initial reports did actually say that they were closed, but maybe they were wrong. Or maybe the member of staff opened it and just said that to try and hide it from the police so they wouldn't get in trouble. Or maybe Elisa got in and then closed it sort of as she was on her way down. Because from the tank, the bottom of the tank, you can't actually reach the hatch at all. As I said, there was a video done basically proving how easy it was to get up to the roof without triggering the alarm, without going through the locked doors, and how easy it was to get inside of this tank. So the fire escape, they went up, it didn't trigger any alarms. There was also this building next to the tanks, making it very, very easy for someone to literally climb up the ladders, get onto the building, and then the tanks were right there. You can just literally just get on top of them. So whether she got up there and willingly got in the tank or accidentally fell, who knows. There's also a ladder seen in this footage, which again wasn't supposed to be there, but there it was. And the hatches were open. So maybe sometimes, like I said, they did leave the hatches open. This was actually done after a body was found, proving how easy it was to get up there. You'd think that they would put up more precautions after a body had just been found in their water tank. to not allow anybody possibly to get up there at all, and yet this person managed to just fine. The dog searches were taken on the roof, but they weren't apparently performed near the tanks, which is possibly why they didn't get sent over. The updates on a Tumblr account, obviously after she'd actually died, apparently there's a queue section where you can literally put all your posts in, queue them up, have them released on certain days, I guess a bit like YouTube. And if you go away or anything like that, your posts will continue even though you're not there doing them. So if you've pre-done them, you've pre-made them, and you put them on a schedule, they'll go up. So that's probably what she did. Finally, the test called the Lam Elisa was literally a coincidence. It was nothing to do with Elisa Lam. It was actually a TB test. Apparently Skid Row was rife with TB at the time, and that's why they did it. And it was just a complete coincidence. On March 2015, Elisa Lam was brought home and she was laid to rest. This case on the surface does look really, really odd, and the way she was behaving obviously is very, very strange. But she had mental health issues. She'd gone on this trip alone with no one around to spot if she was acting strange, no one there to help her, give her advice or anything like that. Obviously her parents were at home and she could ring them, but there was no one there to notice if she was acting odd and obviously do something about it. And if she was struggling and wasn't taking her medications, like I said, there was no one there to tell her to take them. Some people do come off the meds. Some people think it's a really good idea and they come off them, and it's really not a good idea more often than not. She could have been delusional and struggling, and it led to either her suicide or her accidental death. We will never know which one it is. She did also have a habit of taking pictures on top of rooftops. Maybe that could explain the reason why she was up there in the first place. Maybe she was taking a photo from that roof at the side of the building, the tanker was open, and she either got in or she fell in. We'll just never know. Let me know your thoughts on the case. Do you think that she was murdered? Do you think it was more to do with her mental health, or do you think there was a paranormal presence there that day and that is what happened to her? Just let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear what you guys think on this one. This case has also been sort of a massive thing on TikTok at the minute. I believe somebody posted about it and said that it was a case that really, really worried them, and it still worries them to this day. So I believe it's quite viral on TikTok at the moment too. So this case is kind of circling around again, and you may hear more and more about it because of that. But yeah, that is the case behind what could be a viral TikTok, in case anybody didn't really know the circumstances behind it. But yeah, that's the end of the case. If you have any more suggestions, let me know and I'll look into them for you. Give me a big thumbs up on this video and subscribe to my channel for similar content. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Elisa Lam. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.